Hi, today we're going to make some Neapolitan style pizza from scratch. So I'm going to go over the recipe for the dough, the sauce, and with this pizza, most of it isn't so much the recipe, it's the technique. So I've been doing this same recipe for about 5 or 7 years and I think I have it down. So I'll try to give you my hints to make it come out really well. Couple of things. Let's go over the ingredients for the actual pizza, and I'm going to make enough for 3 pizzas because that's kind of the crowd I have tonight. I have here some flour. What I do is I buy in bulk and I get a high gluten type of flour because I do a lot of baking and bread making and pizzas, and so the high gluten flours work really well for that application. I've got a stand mixer, just standard KitchenAid here, and I do everything by weight, so you'll see I have a digital scale. And for 3 pizzas, it's about 4.5 cups, but what I do is I just measure that out. It's 572 grams of flour, and we'll get to the actual recipe. The other parts that are important is the yeast. I really like this kind of yeast. It's a SAF instant yeast. It's a dry yeast and it works really, really well. It's fantastic, always rises. I've had great luck with it. And the rest of it is salt, honey, and olive oil. And I'll go over the actual ingredients. So the first thing we're going to do is use our stand mixer bowl, zero out the bowl on there. And we'll weigh out 572 grams of flour. Alright, so the ball is coming together. Looks like it used pretty much the full 1.5 today. It's a little wet, you could hear it. I'm going to wait till that mixes in, and I don't want to over mix it. So, once it's worked in pretty well, I'm going to bring it out onto this cleaned up surface. I have a granite countertop, which is great for bread making, pizza making, etc. It's I work right on the countertop. As far as tools go, I recommend that you get some kind of scraper tool just in case it sticks to the countertop. It's also good for portioning out the pizzas themselves. So this is going to make 3 balls, and those are going to probably rise for about 90 minutes before we start to prepare them. So we'll take a break once the actual dough is ready to be rested. So total work time is close to 10 minutes, a little bit shy of that. I'm going to just add a little flour to the bowl to get the size. It helps get the dough ball itself moving around a little bit, give it some traction. And in a lot of recipes you'll see it say when it's climbing the hook, the dough hook, that it's kind of ready, and that's kind of where it's at right now, so we'll pause it here. I'm going to pull it out and show you what it looks like. So you can see it comes out as 1 ball. And right now it's pretty sticky. It's a little stickier than I would probably want it, so I'm going to dust the place where I'm going to hand knead it a little bit to keep it from being this sticky. Put down about, 50 grams of flour there. In this case, it's pretty wet compared to where I like it, but go ahead and hand knead it for about a minute to bring it together. Heel kneading action. Just a little bit of flour, it's not sticking at all to the surface. What I'm looking for is smoothing it out so that it's got, perfectly smooth is kind of what you see with a factory mixer, and kind of like somebody that does it at industrial scale. I'm getting it to the point where it's not bumpy, not too bumpy, but I'm not looking for that perfect smooth surface. The hand kneading part, because you can kind of feel the dough, and once you've made it enough, kind of know what it feels like. So this is the dough. You can see it's a little bumpy still. It's not like super smooth, but it's very dense. It's a very wet dough. This is probably right now about 1 kilogram, so about 2 pounds of dough. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut it into 3 pieces. I'm gonna use a scale to try to get it even, because even with eyeballing it and doing it a long time, I'm never that great. So yeah, so 1,014 kilograms, so about looking for about 330 to 340 a piece. Okay, so now you can kind of see, that's what you want to get right there. It's wet, it's a little sticky and tacky, but it's not sticky to the point where it's, you know, leaving residue or whatever else. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on the granite. I'm going to cover it with dusting of flour. I'm going to wrap it with some saran so that it doesn't dry out. See, and that's just about perfect for the second one. See how smooth that is, and it's nice round shape. There we go with the last one. Again, these are going to be really nice pizzas. They're going to rise probably double in size, and what's going to happen is that this is going to be enough to make kind of a 12-inch kind of individual 2-person sized pizza. We usually split these for 2 people at about this size. We'll come back in 90 minutes and we'll see how they've risen. Here we got our 3 dough balls. They are wrapped with some plastic food wrap, and you notice that I leave a few inches between each one because they'll grow a lot. And I wrap them up, but not super tight, just enough so that there's no air getting to them, and we're going to give these somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes to rise before we make them into pizzas. 90 is probably closer to about right, but it depends on how warm it is and everything else. It's a warm day, so I think they're going to do a good job of bouncing up pretty quick. So that's what you should be looking for. There's a little, you can see I have some work flour, and I just dusted the tops of these balls so that it wouldn't stick too much to the plastic. So that's the goal there, is get them ready to go. And in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to make our pizza sauce. All right, so while our pizzas are rising, it's a perfect time to make the pizza sauce. And as I mentioned before, I like to do what's called a raw sauce, not a cooked sauce. And that means that you really have to depend on the flavor of the tomatoes. I've tried a bunch of them, and the one that I really like the most is this one. It's the Cento whole peeled Italian tomatoes. This is usually an import type of thing. You get it at better supermarkets. It's got usually like a sprig or 2 of basil that you want to pull out, but this is tomatoes in a tomato sauce. I use all of it, and I run it through a food mill. So I've got like a real simple OXO food mill with what you could see is the coarsest grind settings. So we're not using it for like a soup or anything like that. And then the other ingredients to the sauce are real simple. I use a little bit of dried oregano. I use just a little bit of olive oil, some kosher salt. I like the granularity of kosher salt, so I use that. And then last but not least, some fresh ground pepper. So all I really do is crack this guy open and feed it through the food mill. Sprig of basil. But you can see that the consistency of the sauce is like a crushed tomato sauce. And then all I really do is, you know, run it through the mill. It takes a little bit, a bunch of turns to kind of reverse and get it going. And what you want to do is get all those tomato parts without the stringiness of them. So that's what the food mill is giving you, is it's filtering out a lot of that fibery part of the tomato. Find something other than the Cento that you like, that's more available to you, let me know. But I find that the whole peeled tomatoes make the best. And what I do is, after I'm done with the pizza, I really don't use very much of it. I turn it into a pasta sauce the next night. So grab a little wooden spoon, take the bottom of it and just kind of spoon off the solids that are peeled off here. Alright, now we've got kind of that tomato base, that paste, with the solids. It's a little bumpy and it looks great. Take the salt, and I do this by eye, but what I do is I look to kind of like just dust the top of the tomatoes. There's already some salt in these cans. You don't need to add a lot. So just dust it. I'm guessing that's about a teaspoon or so of the tomato sauce. Then same kind of thing with the olive oil. You don't want to make it oily. You just want to give it like a little bit of flavor. So just 2 or 3 lines back and forth again. Guessing that's around a teaspoon. Take my cracked black pepper and grind on there. And then my oregano. Again, this is kind of just cover the surface of it. And then all you do with your wooden spoon is you kind of stir it up. Don't make a mess. But get it so that the oil is mixed in a little bit. Get that oregano mixed in, get that salt mixed in, get the pepper into the body. And then what you're going to see is that you've got this nice thick consistency of a sauce. See, it's kind of drippy and gloopy. That's what I use for the topping. It's got a really great tomato smell and taste. Really fresh. It doesn't taste like a cooked sauce. So I recommend this a lot more than buying like a jarred pizza sauce. Those are all cooked sauces and they just taste different. This gives your pizza real fresh taste. So that's it. And then all we're going to do now is wait for the dough. And then I'm going to show you how to prep the oven. And I have a trick for what I do for my oven. And then the cheeses. And we'll get to that right after it's done rising. All right, so we're back after about, I'd say, almost 90 minutes, maybe just shy. And you can see how those little pizza balls have gone from being small to touching. So they've risen quite a bit. It's pretty much ready to go. So let's get ready for the baking, and I'm going to walk out and show you how I do my baking. So here's a couple more tools of the trade. I use yellow cornmeal. I like Alber's because it's kind of like a middle grain. I don't like them too coarse or too fine. And that's what's going to keep everything from sticking to the peel. Here's my pizza peel. So I've got, you know, kind of a nice simple aluminum peel. And then I'm going to walk you out to where I do my baking, which is outside. So here's my setup. I have a 5-burner Vermont barbecue grill, and you can see remnants of many pizzas past. What I like to do is use a pizza stone. You can see I made pizzas not too long ago. I'm going to clean that off before. It's hard to get my oven above 500 degrees, but this grill will get an air temp, you know, almost, you know, it can get up to 700 if you're lucky, but more than likely I can get it up to about between 500 and 600 pretty reliably. And I find that the pizza stone is a perfect way to do it. If you don't have this kind of a setup, you could use your oven, but definitely get a larger pizza stone because they retain the heat so much better than anything else. So now I'm going to make 2 types of pizzas. My kids like shredded mozzarella, so I'm going to make them kind of more of a traditional one. And I like kind of a more of a Neapolitan style pizza, including the type of mozzarella. So I'm going to show you the kind of mozzarella I like. Belgioso Ovalini. The Ovalinis are the larger ones. They look like this when you take them out. So I'll use a whole Ovalini for one of those pizzas. And then I'll use some fresh shredded, you know, supermarket style mozzarella for the kids' pizzas. So we're going to go and show you how to work the dough. Your hand's nice and dry. You don't want it to be sticky. got some of the flour left, so I'm going to flour my hands a little bit so they're not too sticky. And I'm going to take the wrap off of here. And I'm lucky in that they're kissing, so I'm going to have to cut them apart, the two adjacent dough balls. But you could see that the wrap pulled right off. Didn't really stick very much. And I'm going to take that handy pizza slicer that scraper that I talked about. We're going to lift it off. And you can see that the top's got like a very light skin. The bottom is still pretty sticky. So I'm going to take some of that flour that I have in my little working pile. Try not to make a mess. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let gravity do its thing. You could see this is really soft and it's stretching on its own. And it's going to probably not need a lot more than this. I'm going to toss it a little bit just to get it the middle thinner. So once I have it kind of rounded out, I use my fist like this to kind of stretch it, and then I use the two fists here and I toss gently like that, you know, really just looking at getting it stretched out from the middle. And now you can see it's really starting to free up. So this is the perfect consistency. I don't like to roll my pizza dough. I think that rolling the dough is not great. I like to use just gravity and fingers to do this. And I'm going to size it up against the here. And you see that my goal will be to get it to fit right on this peel, cover pretty much the whole peel, get it pretty round. So you can see here how that's about the size of the pizza I want, and this is roughly 12-inch peel, so it's going to make it. You see the edges of the dough are a little raised. That's going to form a nice lip for the pizza and prevent the sauce from spilling over when we sauce it. So the next thing I'm going to do is pull this off the peel because I don't want it to stick. I'm going to put some Alber's cornmeal on the peel, be pretty generous, and make sure that, once again, that I can slide that pizza into the oven onto that pizza stone when it's ready to cook. So our oven's outside is probably close to pretty much heated up, so I'm going to finish the pizza here. I'm going to spread out my cornmeal. I want to cover the whole peel because that 1 square inch that you don't cover is the one that's going to stick. And don't worry, it doesn't stick to the dough too much, so it just a little bit on the bottom and actually adds a nice crunch to the dough. Alright, so it's on the peel, it's got the cornmeal underneath. Let's sauce that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the sauce and a wooden spoon, start in the middle, and make circular rings, and I'm going to keep it pretty thin. Primarily the first pizzas are always for the kids, and they don't like it as saucy as the adults do. They like just enough tomato to taste tomato, but not enough to make it too tomatoey. And in fact, they're big on the cheese, so I'm going to just cover this with cheese. So this is pretty much what you're going for here. It's not edge to edge. You have your little margin, maybe a ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch. And just using some shredded supermarket mozzarella for the kids stuff, since that's their speed. What I find is that my kids like when you go right to the edge of the tomato sauce, so not too much tomatoes peek out. That seems to be the strike against me if I leave too much tomatoes peeking out, so pretty careful about going all the way. And now I'm going to walk this out so you know. Alright, so let's get this in. We're a little bit over 400. It'll keep on going up. First pizza takes a little longer. So sticking a little bit, but not too bad. See there. Keep it round. See how that's gotten onto that grill there? It's got a pretty good round shape. It takes a little practice. First few times I did it, it was kind of an oval pizza, but I've gotten better at it. Now we're gonna just put the lid down, and you can see that's on its way over 400. We're gonna go for about 6 minutes here. What I just did was I took my ovalini and I just thin sliced it, maybe a little between an eighth and a quarter inch, probably closer to quarter slices. That will be laid out in a flower petal pattern on the pizza, make it look really authentic when we get around to making the adult pizzas. So still waiting on that first pizza to finish cooking. So our 6 minutes is over, and now what we're going to do is we're going to come here and rotate it. You can see it's now up very close to 500 degrees. The next pizza will be probably a little under 6 minutes, but you can see where we're at, and you know, it's still a little doughy, but you see the cheese is cooked pretty much through. I like the browning on that, so I'm going to flip this. Some cheese melted, so it's there. So see how I flipped that about a half a turn so that we're going to get proper rotation on everything, and probably another minute at most. So I'm just going to wait it out. Right, and we have waited out that minute. You can see by tapping on it that this is pretty well done. I don't want the cheese to get any darker than that. It's really nice and bubbly. What's interesting and great to see is look at the bottom of that pizza. It's not wet or soft. That's kind of what I like about the stones versus kind of a lot of the new Neapolitan types of pizza places, which have really thin pizzas and cook for very short time. Their crusts are a little bit wet at the bottom, I think, or thin. This has a good crisp bite to it, so that's what I've been aiming for in my pizzas. I'm gonna go through another kid pizza and then get to the adult pizza, which is really just a variant on this one. All right, so we are ready to put the second pizza on. As you can see, it's getting a little darker outside, and the oven's now like right at 500. This one's gonna go for a little less. I'll probably do this one for about 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So because it hasn't waited as long, it's just going to slide off the peel a lot easier. You can hear it sizzle. You can see the scraps of cheese go and sizzle. So let's say bye-bye to you. So 5.5 minutes later, this is pizza number 2. I'm going to rotate that as well, about a half turn. This one did not stick because the cheese did not melt onto the pizza stone, but there we go. You can see again kind of how it's doing underneath. And let's give it another minute or so. It's gone by and it's time to pick it up. You can see this one's a lot browner than the other one. It's because the oven's a bit hotter. It's got a nice browning on the top, comes up nice and easy. See, there we go. That's what we're after. Alright, so I've already flipped it around, so now we're going to retrieve our pizza. Look at that. So you can see it's bubbling. Because of the moisture content of this type of mozzarella, I'm going to let this one rest a little bit before we cut it. Usually I give it a couple of minutes, but you can see how it's nicely browned along the edges. Sorry for the low light, I'll bring it into a better light, but it's pretty much perfect. This is what I'm aiming for when I make pizza for me.